Howdy folks, Spencer here, and today I'll be breaking down the MUD's 32nd Century Legacy Choice Pack and going over whether or not it's something you should consider picking up. As always, chapters to each topic are listed down below. First up, I want to go over the basic information about this bundle before I take a deeper look at each of these ships that you're going to be able to get from it. So this bundle is going live on PC Thursday, October 3rd, and for those of you on console, it'll go live sometime before the end of the year. It is going to be on an introductory 50% discount from October 3rd up through October 17th. And alongside that, there is also going to be a 75% sale for the non bundle items in the MUD store from October 3rd up through October 7th. This bundle is going to have two different variants that you can purchase. The first is the Pick 3 Choice Pack, which has a base cost of 29,500 Zen or 14,750 Zen during the introductory sale. And then there is the Mega Bundle, which gets you everything this bundle has to offer. That has a base cost of 60,000 Zen or 30,000 during the introductory sale. The bundle contents are the Kirk Temporal Heavy Battlecruiser, the Janeway Command Science Vessel, the Courage Command Science Destroyer, and for the consumable options, you have 50 Master Keys, 300 Lobby Crystals, 16 Elite Bridge Officer Upgrade Tokens, 9 experimental ship upgrade tokens, or 10 ultimate tech upgrades. And as with any other MUDs bundle, the ships from this, if you decide to pick them, are going to be reclaimable account wide, but they are bound to you, so you can't go out and sell them. And to reclaim them, all you have to do is go into the MUD store, go to the ships tab, and you'll see them there for you to reclaim. For the items, so numbers 4 through 8 here, those are just a one-time claim. So if you pick those, you get them once, and they are going to be bound to you. And before I dive into the ships, I just want to quickly go over the Master Key versus Lobby Crystal option. The 300 Lobby Crystals is a very bad pick to go with. You're better off going with the 50 Master Keys if you are picking one of these consumable items. And the reason for that is because on average, 50 Master Keys is going to get you around 300 Lobby, which I will show you now. So I ended up with 299 Lobby here. On average, you'd see about 270 from 50 keys. But the point is, you can either have 300 Lobby on its own, or you can have 50 Master Keys, which is getting you about the same amount of Lobby crystals and 50 lock boxes worth of items. I think that's a pretty clear pick there, so make sure you're going with the keys instead of the Lobby if that is what you're intending to do. The first ship I want to take a look at is the Kirk Temporal Heavy Battlecruiser. This is a promotional tier ship that launched back in 2021 and was extremely popular at the time for the visual appearance. This is a ship design from Discovery that had a lot of people that actually did really enjoy it. And the fact that this was also named the Kirk had people going crazy for it. However, the stats for the Kirk were not that impressive, so for most people it was a flavor of the month ship. They flew it around for a couple weeks and then they put it back in the shipyard and just didn't fly it anymore after that. So looking at the stats here, it's got a hull mod of 1.55, shield mod of 0.95, turn rate of 9, impulse 0.18, inertia of 45. Power bonuses plus 10 to weapons and aux. For the bridge officer setup, Commander Angel with Temporal, Lieutenant Commander Universal with Command, Lieutenant Commander Science, Lieutenant TAC, and an Ensign TAC. Weapons wise, it's got a 5-3 setup, can use dual cannons. It has 3 device slots. Console wise, 4 TAC, 4 Inge, and 3 Psi. And for the cruiser commands, it has everything but the threat one. And given it is a 32nd century ship, it does have a built in battle cloak. But as you can see directly to the right of the Kirk here on this little stats breakdown, is the Typhoon Temporal Battlecruiser, which we're able to get for free from the current Dimensional Typhoon event. And as I covered with the Typhoon breakdown initially, the Typhoon is essentially a better version of the Kirk. You don't have the innate cloak that the Kirk has, but you have a more flexible bridge officer setup and are just able to do a bit more with the Typhoon because of that. So when it comes to the stats, the Kirk is in a really rough position. Yes, it is a promotional tier ship, but for the stats of it, the latest event ship that you can get for free is basically a better copy of it. And unfortunately for the Kirk, the accessories it has are really not that impressive. The console is field replicated buster pods. Passive is going to give you some resistance based on your current shield capacity. And the clicky is going to launch 5 buster pods that will choose a random foe and launch after a short delay. So these are just some missiles that'll fire out and seek random targets. They don't really do that much damage. They're nothing to go crazy about. And the starship trait on this thing is just an absolute meme with how bad it is. It is risk is our business, and this is going to give you temporary hit points from captain abilities. So when activating captain abilities, you're going to get, for me, it shows 2,600 temporary hit points for 10 seconds per foe within 5 kilometers, max 10. And it's going to add some threat if you're in threatening stance. So temporary hit points are not that great generally because they don't have any resistances, so they don't protect you that long. And the amount that you're getting here, 2,600 with a cap of 10, meaning it, would be up to 26k. That's nothing. So really not a trait that you should be considering at all. It just isn't that good. The next ship I want to take a look at is the Voyager J from Star Trek Discovery, known in game as the Janeway Command Science Vessel. This is another promotional tier ship from 2021, which was very popular for the visual appearance. Unfortunately, given it is a 32nd century ship with the floaty bits, it is not kit bashable with any other Voyager variant. And unfortunately, it is also unable to use the consoles from the other Voyager variants like the Ablative Generator or the Aero Shuttle Bay. And heading over to the stats, the Janeway has a hull mod of 1.3, shield mod of 1.1, turn rate of 14, impulse of 0.22, inertia of 60, so does move pretty well. Power bonuses plus 5 to engines, plus 15 to aux. For the bridge officer setup, you have a Commander Psi with command, Lieutenant Commander TAC, Lieutenant Commander Psi, Lieutenant Universal with Miracle Worker, and an Ensign Engineer. It has a 4-2 weapon setup, and it cannot use dual cannons. Console-wise, 4 TAC, 2 Ing, and 5 Psi. And it, of course, has a secondary deflector, subsystem targeting, and sensor analysis. And like I said earlier, because it is a 32nd century ship, it does have a built-in battlecloak. And I do want to note, the Janeway was a somewhat popular torpedo platform when it came out, but, as you're going to hear me say throughout this video for both this and the Courage, that was 3 years ago. The torp meta has changed quite a bit, and sure, these platforms can still be used to do a side torp build or a pure torp if you want, but there are better options in the current state of the game. The unfortunate thing for the Janeway is that within a year of it being in the game, the Terran Trailblazer Science Warship was added to the Zen store. The Terran Trailblazer is another Voyager class variant, but it is kit bashable with all of the other Voyagers, and it can use the Voyager consoles. But where the Terran Trailblazer really hurts the Janeway's value is that it's basically an upgraded version of the Janeway. It's got an extra aft weapon, it can equip dual cannons, and it's much more accessible given it's a $30 Zen store ship. So if you want to learn more about the Terran Trailblazer, I do have a full review for it, which I'll have linked down below. But suffice to say, it really hurts the value of the Janeway having a better Voyager in the Zen store that has the exact same spec combo. So it's really hard to recommend the Janeway when the Terran Trailblazer exists. And for the Janeway accessories, starting off with the console, this is the Photonic Cannon. Passives are plus 15% crit severity with exotic damage and plus 7.5 aux power setting. The clicky on this is going to deploy the Photonic Cannon. This is plus 100 defense rating for 12 seconds, plus 200 all damage resistance rating for 12 seconds. And after 4 seconds, it is going to deal some damage to your targeted foe and a random foe in a forward arc. The issue with this, though, per the discussion about it in the builds Discord, is that the charge time on it being 4 seconds is really bad. That is a 4-second activation, locking you out of hitting anything else for those 4 seconds. And if the target dies, you're just not going to get anything out of it. So, not a console that I'd recommend. And then we have the Starship trait Enhanced Cloaking Integration. When you enter or exit Cloak, this is going to give you some buffs. So when entering Cloak, it is plus 100% turn rate and flight speed for 8 seconds or until you exit Cloak. And you're also going to restore 4% of your max hull capacity per second for 8 seconds or until you exit Cloak. And when you do exit cloak, it is going to give you a firing cycle haste buff for 8 seconds, which scales based on your aux power. So you can see with me at 125 aux power over at the right, that is 20% firing cycle haste, which is nice, but given how much haste we have in the current meta, this isn't really something you should worry about. And next up is the Courage Command Science Destroyer, another promotional tier ship that arrived into the game in 2021 from Star Trek Discovery. And with the Courage being a Science Destroyer, that means it can swap between Science and TAC modes. When you're in Science mode, you have access to the Commander's Science and the Secondary Deflector. And when you are in TAC mode, you lose those to gain a Commander TAC and the Experimental Weapon slot. And with this ship specifically, there are some visual changes when you go between the modes. So it's going to change the direction of the ship and flip it 180 degrees there. So this can be a bit interesting to fly, and unfortunately this animation does bug out sometimes and it will show you going the opposite way it's supposed to be, but the actual systems, the mechanics of it will always work. It's just the visuals often bug out. Heading over to the stats, this has a hull modifier of 1.45, a shield mod of 1.15, turn rate of 10, impulse of 0.2, inertia of 65. For the power bonuses, 5 to weapons and 15 to aux. For the bridge officer setup, it has a commander side with command and a commander tack with command. Remember, with this having the two different modes being a science destroyer, you're only going to have one commander active at a time. Then it has a lieutenant commander universal, a lieutenant engineer, and an ensign universal. Weapons wise, 4-3, and it does have the ability to run dual cannons. And like I showed, in TAC mode, it does have an experimental weapon slot. 3 device slots, console wise, 4 TAC, 3 Eng, and 4 Psi. And it has a secondary deflector, subsystem targeting, sensor analysis, and given it is a 32nd century ship, it does have an innate battle cloak. And I want to quickly note that the Courage was one of the top torpedo platforms when it released back in 2021, but that was 3 years ago. The torpedo meta has moved far beyond that, and this would still work for torpedoes, but it's not going to perform anywhere near the level of the modern torpedo platforms like the Terran Eagle and the Zen Store, which happens to be just hands down the best torpedo ship in the game. There's no competition for the Terran Eagle. This will still work, but compared to the alternative options out there, some of which are available directly in the Zen Store, like the Kardashev, this thing just does not really hold the value it once had. And for the ship comparisons here, I already mentioned the Kardashev. That is another science destroyer, except it is in the Zen Store for $30, and it's not dual command. It's got a command and a temporal seat. So that's a better specialization combo, especially in the current meta with Uncon. So the Kardashev is a cheaper option that does beat the Courage. And there's also the Marion Command Science Dreadnought, which is part of the MUD's Dread Through the Ages bundle that we got earlier this year. The one that has the TOS Dreadnoughts with the DPRM and the Enterprise J variants. That Marion is basically just the Courage without the TAC mode feature, and you gain a hangar bay on it. So the Marion, for what that provides, that's also better than the Courage. Hangar bays are really valuable right now thanks to the Type 7 hangar pets. And heading over to the accessories, first up is the experimental weapon, Coherent Integrity Projector. This does heavy kinetic damage that scales based on your maximum hull capacity, and it has 20% innate shield pen. From what I recall, this thing doesn't really perform that well, so don't worry about it. Then we have the console Force Translator. This has a passive for a scaling damage buff for energy weapons that will scale based on your aux power. So it's 19.5 with me at 130 aux power. And plus 3.3% max hull capacity, which is a pretty low number. And the click key on this is going to stop you from moving for 2 seconds, and to foes within 5 kilometers, it will deal some kinetic damage, and that will scale with max hull and flight speed. And that also has a repel. So this console was broken when it first launched, but it was quickly fixed, and I don't think anyone has really used it ever since. It's nothing to worry about. And the Starship trait is Directional Bias. When damaged from your front, you're going to get a plus 5% Cat 2 bonus exotic damage buff from Bridge Officer abilities, max of 10 stacks once per second. All front stacks will reset when activating exotic damage Bridge Officer abilities, so it's giving you that damage buff for just a single ability. And then when damaged from your aft, you're going to get plus 1% hull regen and plus 5% bonus outgoing hull healing for bridge officer abilities, max of 10 stacks once per second, and all stacks of that will reset when you activate a hull heal. This really just doesn't look that good to me, and I honestly cannot recall seeing a single person use this trait. And to wrap things up, this bundle is very much what I would call a Space Barbie bundle. There's not really any modern meta performance reasons to go after these ships. They're good, but there are ships that are either equal to them or better than them that you can get at a fraction of the price. The Kirk is beaten by the Typhoon, which we get for free from the current event. The Cygnus for $30 in the Zen store also isn't that far off of it. The Janeway has alternatives with the Terran Trailblazer or the Kardashev, both of which are $30 Zen store ships. And for the Courage, it's the same situation. If you're doing Side Torp, then the Kardashev or the Terran Trailblazer would both be options that are equivalent or better for that playstyle. Ultimately, I do feel that this Muds bundle was a missed opportunity on their part. They went with the 3 promo ships from 2021, which, yes, promo ships do have a higher value in theory, but that value is diminished when there are ships available for $30 in the Zen store that are either equivalent or better than these options. So, very much a missed opportunity for them to bring the crossfield refit into a Muds bundle. They grabbed 2 of the premium ship releases from right around it. They could easily have had that in there as a 4th option or as the 3rd ship instead of the Courage or the Kirk. Either way would have made sense. And I think if the refit had been in here, we'd be looking at this bundle quite differently. A lot of people would probably be interested and go out and pick it up. But without the refit in here, there's no performance or meta reason to go for the Kirk, the Courage, or the Janeway. They're all dated platforms by modern standards. Their accessories are nothing to talk about. So, performance wise, I can't recommend this bundle. But if you're going for this for the ship visuals, then you've got the Janeway and the Kirk there, which I know many of you would be happy to have on account-wide unlock. So my recommendation for this is to skip this bundle and hope that the next one has something a bit more impactful performance-wise. But this one, they just missed the ball here. And as always, thank you to all channel members and viewers for the continued support. See you guys around.